Hey everybody, welcome to another channel update. This one is February 2020. Did I have to look at a calendar to determine what year it was? Yeah. I don't know if you've been watching NLSS VODs, but sometimes I put 2019 in the title. That's my bad. That's a first couple of weeks of January problem. You shouldn't be having that problem at the end of February. You know what's messed up? Some of the time, I've put 2018 in the title and then gone back in like 20 minutes and been like, that's not right. And then I go right 2019. I'm still working it out cerebrally. It might take a bit. Hopefully within the next 9 months we'll get there before 2020 comes to an end. Anyway, I did a channel update last month that talked about the new direction we're taking, which is largely pretty similar to the old direction of the channel, but also trying some new things, you know? Northernlion tries coming out every single day, playing new games that come out on a variety of platforms, but mostly Steam. Meme tier list videos. Since then, we've also had, like, which of my friends would win in a fight, which was a lot of fun, and which of my friends would win on a reality show, which was fun, but not as successful. I don't mean in terms of numbers, I mean in terms of my own personal enjoyment, honestly. And we're still keeping all that stuff going. But we do have even more new stuff coming on. I'm going to talk about the podcast that Dan and I started, which came out this morning. Because it comes out at 3 a.m. Pacific time, there's no way this video is going to make it before the podcast. I will be fast asleep when the podcast goes up. However, for those of you who didn't catch the announcement on Twitter, you watched Dan announce it on his stream. I thought I'd go over that briefly. We'll talk about Frostpunk, because that's coming to an end in like the next couple of days, and Dark Souls Remastered as well, which has been a highlight of the year so far. So first off, the most important part of this channel update, Dan, aka at Dan Giesling, and I have started a new podcast together. It's called Check the Wire. It's going to be up on my YouTube channel every Tuesday at 3 a.m. Pacific time. For audio-only listeners, I'll put a link in the video description below. You can also find it on Dan's Twitter account. But Dan controls all the audio channels. If you want to listen on Spotify, Apple Music, is that even what it's called? Is it called iTunes anymore? I don't know. I'm not in that ecosystem. Everything along those lines, Dan's got control of that. So, we recorded the first episode on Thursday, but it's been in the cooker, honestly, for kind of a couple of weeks. And the way that it came to pass, and we talk about this on the podcast, so I would encourage you to just watch it, is basically, I've done podcasts in the past. I did a roundtable. But I kind of reached a point where I was like, I don't really want to talk about just video games anymore. And I don't mean any disrespect to anybody who structures content like that, because obviously there's an appetite for it. And if that's what you're passionate about, then that's what you're passionate about. But for me personally, it was more like, every week it kind of felt the same. You know what I mean? Ubisoft releases new DLC for this, CD Projekt Red, new Cyberpunk 2070, their 2077 trailer, blah, blah, blah. E3's coming up in a couple of weeks. What do you expect to see? Oh my God, that's crazy. I know I said I didn't mean any disrespect to that kind of content, and then I kind of came across a little bit more disrespectful than I intended. But anyway, it's just not for me, anymore. I get enough of that, talking about it on the stream from time to time. So what I am interested in, and we've been doing a lot more of it this year, is talking about, the intricacies and behind the scenes looks at what it actually means to be a content creator, a YouTuber, a streamer, and also just like an adult human being, if that makes sense. I think that, there's lots of stuff to tease at there that we've only really scratched the surface of in videos where we've talked about stuff like, how do you deal with time management? How do you deal with when you have two videos? Like, you put a lot of work into a video, it comes out and nobody watches it and people don't like it, and then you just kind of fart one out and it goes viral. And, how do you cope with the weirdness of this job, in a positive light? So that's kind of the impetus that led to this podcast. So I know right off the bat, it's not something that's accessible for absolutely everybody, and that's okay. We're going to talk more about making broader content, but this is something that's really it's more targeted at people that have watched me and Dan talk in the past about stuff like this and get really, a little deeper and honest about it. And then they said, man, I would really like to watch more of that, or I'd really like to listen to more of that. So that's going to be coming out weekly. I'm excited. Dan is I don't want to call him the host because we're like co-hosts, but Dan is a great person to podcast with. He hits you. You have to be honest about it with Dan. You got to sometimes be like, stop asking me questions. I'm going to ask you some questions. I don't want to be interviewed. I want to get your insight on things as well, because I think Dan brings a really interesting perspective into this as somebody who's open to trying new things and has like an infectious positivity about him. And then on top of that, somebody who has like their own actual business on the side on top of like his own family life going on. So the fact that, you know, we can do this podcast together is really interesting because I get to ask him as well. I'm like, dude, you have so many things going on. How do you manage to do this? What's your strategy for it? So I think that, you know, we have a good chemistry. We're having good conversations about it so far and no shortage of material at all. So I hope people like episode 1. If you haven't seen it, I'd encourage you to give it a watch. The other reason I wanted to do like a podcast style thing is because I don't really have like an audio only sort of outlet. And I think, you know, people listen to Isaac and other series when they go to sleep. They're not watching actively. They just like to hear conversations, you know, and the sound of my voice. Not to be self-flattering, but it's probably a little bit more appealing than the look of my dome. But it's a total package, baby, in a channel update like this. Filling up your entire 64-inch TCL plasma flat screen LCD TV, curved or 3D, I don't care. Anyway, I'm excited about it. I'm passionate about it. I hope you watch it. If you don't watch it, give it a listen. You know, throw it into, I don't know how podcasts work, throw it into your feed. Is that how it works? I honestly, I really only listen to like 2 podcasts. So, yeah, give it a look. I hope that people actually end up liking it. And if it's not for you, it's not taken away from any other content. We're just shuffling things around to find the time. I also want to, on a positive note, first off, say thank you for all the support on the Dark Souls Remastered. It is coming to YouTube, and it has been coming out every single day. It's coming out like an hour a day until like the 25th of February or something like that, when the series is actually over because we beat it. But it is a little bit more of Twitch focused for sure. But I still wanted to talk about it because there's a lot of, you know, people that watch both platforms. I think that, and this is in the title, a little bit of clickbait, my favorite series of the year so far. Dark Souls Remastered has been a ton of fun. And I've had a lot of fun making a lot of different stuff in the year so far. Like Golden Goblet is a ton of fun. Speaking of which, and I don't want to go into this too much, people have asked, the most common criticism about Golden Goblet is when the week is over, it just hops right into another week and we don't get like a recap or a stats or a, you know, best clips or something like that. Me, Malf, and Dan are talking about it. It seems like it's a lot of work, just to be frank with you, but I agree that I think it would bring a lot of value, especially for people that only watch, like, you know, not every perspective, because that's 21 videos a week, to get like a Chris Berman Sports Center style, like, you won't believe what happened on, you know, Dan's episode, and then watch him go out in a hail of bullets, you know? At least something to recap, like what happens week to week. So it's in the cooker. It might take a little time to come to pass. And moreover, yes, the new Golden Goblet is Slay the Spire. I promise you, watch the videos, have fun. Dan is cooking something that he has a chance to do a little better at. We're not deliberately picking games that are designed to, you know, screw Dan over, okay? I don't think that, I haven't seen it too much, but we're picking fun things, and sometimes he hasn't played as much as we have, but we're cooking those ideas together. We've only been doing it for a month, but it's been a lot of fun so far. But yeah, Dark Souls Remastered, I think, has been a real highlight so far. And it also, it changed the way that I approached my streams over the course of the past, like, week and a half. So really, normally when I did a game on Sundays, I was like, this is our Sunday game. And I played it every Sunday for 3 hours and 3 hours only. And it's good because there's a routine, but there's also problems with it, right? If somebody misses a couple of streams and they hop in at hour 10 of The Witcher 3, they're like, I don't know what's happening. Maybe I'll just leave and skip this one. And also, if a game is long, it takes forever. It takes like 6 months of Sundays in order to get it completed. And that's really limited game choice to some extent on Sundays because I don't want to lock in for something that's that long. But with Dark Souls Remastered, and it happened really naturally just because I was enjoying it so much. And also, like, usually, like, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we played new games on stream sometimes. I just want to repeat, new games. I did not say nude games. We'll save that for the $25 and up patrons when we launch. It's not on the horizon. I'm just making an ill-advised joke about the industry. I apologize. Anyway, It happened organically because, usually Tuesdays and Thursdays I used to play new games. Now, pretty much all the new games on my radar get sucked up for Northernlion tries. So I'm like, I don't really want to dive into those under every circumstance. So instead, I was like, let's play more Dark Souls Remastered. And we streamed maybe, I don't know, like 18 to 20 hours of just Dark Souls Remastered over the course of 10 days or something like that. And we got it done. It took us maybe 5 streams. So instead of finishing Dark Souls Remastered in a month and a half, roughly, especially if you have to take a Sunday off for whatever reason, we finished it in just a little bit over a week, which was really good. Honestly, a lot of fun. And will, I think, change the way that I approach Sunday games in the future. I don't want to say that every Sunday game now is also going to be a Tuesday game and a Thursday game, but, it is nice to, when the iron is hot, not just in terms of what people like to see, but in terms of what you like to play, is good to hit it as much as possible, I think. So in terms of, what might be coming on Sundays in the future, what might be taking up that Dark Souls Remastered spot, honestly, I'm still cooking ideas. And the reason I'm still cooking ideas is because Frostpunk is also coming to an end. So I got a couple of openings, to be honest. I got things, I solicited suggestions on Twitter for both of those spots, but I'm still cooking some stuff up. One thing I will say is I do want to do more Dark Souls 1 randomizer in the future. I think that it's very replayable, and we can crank up some of the zanier aspects of it as well. But because of the fact that the bosses are totally shuffled and randomized each time, I think we can do it again. I'm not saying we're going to do it again right away, but maybe in 3 months or something like that. I think that could be an evergreen sort of recurring, hey, I don't know what to play for 2 weeks. Let's do another Dark Souls randomizer run. I also, and I said this last year, I want to do Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3 properly. I need to find an opening for this. It'll be on Twitch, not on YouTube. Dark Souls 2, is not many people's favorite Dark Souls game. However, I never played Scholar of the First Sin. I would love to get through all that content and really just be like, I've beaten every boss in every Souls game. And I know what you're saying. That includes Nameless King and Dark Souls 3? Yes, it does. I would love to do Dark Souls 2, all bosses, all DLC. I would love to do Dark Souls 3, all bosses, all DLC. I would be very surprised if we didn't do that in 2020. Now, inevitably, some people are like, that's too much Dark Souls. I understand. All I'm going to say in response to that is a lot of people really do like it. I like it too. And moreover, 2 things moreover. One is no matter what you pick, you're going to alienate some people. Some people get alienated loudly, and some people just quietly are like, I'm not going to watch this, and then you'll never see them again. So you got to keep that in balance and in mind whenever possible. The second thing is, if you didn't want to see any more Dark Souls, I hope you've never made a joke about me not beating the Nameless King, because it's after 4 years of being harangued about it, finally I'm going to do something about it, and people are like, hold on, I was just making a joke. This is a no-joke zone. I'm the only one who tells jokes here. Chat's not allowed to tell jokes. They're just allowed to say, hey, great stream, keep it up, Egg. Anyway, will those be the next things on Twitch? Probably not the very next things, because I would prefer to put a little palate cleanser in between the Dark Souls, but I don't know what it's going to be. So we're still percolating that. Now, Frostpunk, we can have a conversation about Frostpunk. It is going to end, I think episode 14 is the last episode, so it's ending in the next couple of days. Extremely, very good game, and a game that I played 2 hours of when it came out, but finally having the opportunity to do, I don't want to call it a campaign, but to knock out one of the scenarios, whether positively or negatively, I relish the opportunity for that. However, I do have to also be honest with you. People are like, are you going to do Frostpunk? There's 5 or 6 scenarios in the game. Are you going to get to those right away? I would like to do them. I'm not going to do them right away. And it boils down to a couple of things. One is, we've played Frostpunk for 2 weeks, and the whole purpose of that 10 a.m. Frostpunk, Hades kind of time slot, 60 seconds, etc., that's kind of like a variety injection for the channel. I want to put more stuff in there as often as possible, While still it fulfills like kind of part of the goal of like being a long running series where you can get into the routine, but right as it stales out a little bit at one of the earliest possible junctures to jump off and try something new, that's what I want to do. So and quite frankly, Frostpunk, it was, again, I want to stress, I love my job, and at the end of the day I played 10 hours of a great video game that honestly has been one of the most fun video games I've played all year, and I'm playing it a little bit in my downtime as well when I get a chance. However, the numbers were not at the point where I'm like, oh, we should really like jump on getting more Frostpunk stuff out right away. I think it's like I had a craving to play one of those like sandbox strategy games, and we did it, and now we'll probably move on to something else. So a lot of the suggestions for that have been like Planet Zoo or like another XCOM campaign or something like that. Just to be frank, I think because those occupy like such a similar niche, we're probably going to do something else and stay away from that for a bit. Especially XCOM, I've done so much of it and it's so long. For me, it's like I've done XCOM multiple times. Enemy Within a couple of times. Long War. Failed it miserably, but still tried a couple of times. XCOM 2 did it. XCOM 2 War of the Chosen did it. XCOM 2 Long War, I can't remember if I ever did it. But still, there's a lot of XCOM that's come out. And usually my experience with the XCOM is like, it has a very passionate community in a very good way. Not in a negative way at all. But it starts and people are like, this is awesome. And then, 45 days later, not that many people are actually watching the videos, which again is fine. I mean, I understand. I'm not watching too many. I mean, the viewership is always going to fall off, right? Like I watched the first season of Stranger Things and I was like, this is awesome. And then I watched the second season of Stranger Things and I was like, this is okay, but it's a little less awesome. And then I never touched it again. So all you need is like one video where the guy, he didn't use the med kit. And all of a sudden you're like, this is not must-watch television anymore. So, the whole purpose of these channel updates is to speak frankly about it, to be honest. I would love to find an opportunity to play more XCOM. I think the opportunity will probably be if more XCOM content comes out, if more expansions or a sequel or something like that comes out at some point. 100% I'll be there and I'll return. But I'm not really looking... Like, I think, and this is where we get into slightly more real talk. I think sometimes people's suggestions they get the priorities backwards. I'm not looking for something to play, if that makes sense. I could play anything, I'm looking for something that people will like to watch. And I really think, like, XCOM, and I want to stress again, I love XCOM, and I think War of the Chosen is one of the best expansions for any game that I've ever played in my entire life. It has a community of people that want to watch it, and the community is very vocal, but it's also like, that's all there is. That they get the base viewership, people that are kind of like driving by are like, I don't really want to watch episode 78 of This Guy Plays XCOM. And the exception might be if you're extremely good at the game, or if you're such a gregarious personality, you put even me to shame. But for me, historically, that's what I've seen. So I would rather keep that spot a little bit more flexible until I find something in that Hades, 60 seconds sort of vein, where like it's evergreen a little bit. People like to watch it, and they like to watch it a little longer, to be honest. So I'm thinking that for right now, I'll probably try to do the Hitman 2 DLC in that spot. I've never done the DLC. We'll probably start there, and that could be like 4 days of content. It gives me a little bit more time to think about what I might want to do, and I think we'll keep that as a little bit experimental. I'm trying not to rip off every single one of Dan's ideas, to be honest with you, but I'm kind of waiting for him to beat Getting Over It, and then I'm like, man, I would love to actually... I've never sat down and beaten Getting Over It. I've just played 1 hour bursts where I just go through the same section over and over because I keep falling at the end. I would love to knock out a Getting Over It run. To be honest with you, I'd love to play some sillier stuff, like The Sims 4 or something like that, or I'm trying to think of other stuff that's in that vein, stuff with like some emerging gameplay. And there's always the opportunity to check out some of the stuff on Northernlion tries that has done well and been interesting as well, like Mortal Glory, the gladiator simulator. We can always, my intention for that spot is that We can play things, for like 2 or 3 days without the expectation that they're going to last forever. And then when we find something that's like really a great fit, we're like, okay, we're going to do 2 weeks or a month of this. So, there's Mortal Glory, Curse of the Dead Gods. Getting Over is probably more likely to be on stream, but even like, The Sims or something like that. I'm trying to Hitman 2 DLC. There's other stuff that we've played as well that has gone over pretty well. So that's my intention right now. And I want to be clear, this is not meant with disrespect to Frostpunk. I think the Frostpunk series, I tweeted it like 4 days ago. The community is the most positive community I've ever seen when I played a sandbox survival game. It's nuts. There's like so little negativity, and these games tend to bring out people who, they have criticisms that are valid, like he didn't get enough wood, but they sometimes phrase it like, imagine having a brain so small you forgot to get wood, right? The Frostpunk community is welcome me with open arms, and I'm grateful for that to a huge degree. I think it's an amazing game. However, it wasn't the most well-trafficked series of all time, even though I had a great time making it. So we're going to keep pivoting on that spot and finding new stuff. And you might say, well, but I love Frostpunk. I hope that you will also love the other stuff that I make in that spot as well. Because, isn't it for me, and this is, sometimes when you talk about like the analytics behind things, people take it as like a cynical thing, And that's why I always got so annoyed when people were like, whenever Dan and I would play Fortnite, people thought it was like an analytics play. Like we were chasing like Zoomer audiences or something like that. It's like the worst performing videos we've ever done. Well, I've ever done. The reason that I played Fortnite with Dan is because I was like, oh, I hope this is entertaining, It's that the analytics thing is, it is like something you have to look at. But I look at it not only like, oh, we can't do this because it's unpopular. More like the numbers seem to indicate that maybe this isn't as entertaining to other people as it is to me. And that's a good, impetus for me to try some other stuff that people might be more interested in. And as long as we're doing this, like, medium dive, this is something we could talk about on the podcast, actually. But as long as we're doing this, like, medium dive, sometimes I feel like that about suggestions as well. And it gets me in trouble because I ask for suggestions and then people give me suggestions and I go, I don't want to do that. But oftentimes the suggestions are, stuff I've already done, but doing it again. And I'm like, I think on some level, if you always are beholden to those sort of suggestions, it limits you in some way. Because, I just watched Knives Out. If Ryan Johnson were here, the director, and he was like, do you want to see a sequel? I would be like, oh my God, please make a sequel. Benoit Blanc, I love that character. But maybe what I would really like is for the mind behind Knives Out to make, I know they're making a sequel, by the way, but the mind behind Knives Out to work on a different project with the lessons that he learned from Knives Out. And maybe I would like his new movie, Spoons In, even better. You know what I mean? So don't take it as like he's ignoring my suggestion. I wanted to see XCOM 2 and he's crapping on my dream. It's not like that. I hope that by having a little bit of time to explore new avenues, we can maybe come up with something in a collaborative way between myself and my community that, you might like more than just another XCOM 2 campaign. We may be unsuccessful, but that's the spirit of early 2020 so far. We're trying new things, and if they work, amazing. We lean into that a little bit. If they don't work, that's okay. That's what you get when you try new things. Oftentimes you're going to do okay. Sometimes you're going to knock it out of the park, and sometimes you're going to strike out. It is what it is. For now, thanks for watching. Again, takeaways. Watch the podcast. Check The Wire. 3 a.m. on Tuesdays. Yes, it's early. It's YouTube. You don't have to be there when it goes live. Don't at me. You can listen to it audio only if you want to as well on Daniel's services, which I will link below and will also, of course, be linked in the podcast VOD itself. Apart from that, love Dark Souls Remastered. Expect to see more Souls at some point this year and more Dark Souls 1 randomizer. Frostpunk is ending soon. Thanks for your support. I had a great time playing the game. We'll probably try something new next time. For now, thanks for watching. Hope you guys have enjoyed yet another channel update. If you did, click the like button. It helps me make programming decisions, Do you want to see more of my face coming at you, stretched and grainy? Or do you want to see, Egg, post more Isaac? Of course, if you're just getting onto the ride, subscribe. We're riding a wave in 2020 so far. I hope to see you stick around. For now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. See ya. And now the awkward part where I have to find the stop recording button. See ya.